Taking out my gum. Hello, this is Brian with Transparency and Merit. This is called Expert in Nothing. Or is it Expert in Nothingness? Yeah, Expert in Nothingness. I'm here, nothing, with Joe. He may have a poker game to go to later, so he may stay with us for a little bit. Joe, have you ever met an expert in nothingness?
I would say they are everywhere. They run rampant in social services and all over the place. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean,
Any job I've had a run in or two with a person of knowing, an expert in nothingness. They seem to pop up in almost every job I've ever had.
perhaps we should call this an expert in difficulty, making your job or my job more difficult, and perhaps an expert in selfishness. You know, there's a lot of egocentric individuals going around right now who are, experts in nothingness. Basically, they're very myopic, and they want to control society and how people behave and act. And particularly, they want to control white people and how they behave and act, second guessing them, maligning them, degrading them. And I've never seen anything, I've never seen it where it's been given this much validity. After George Floyd's death, all of a sudden, the Beverly D'Angelos and the rest of the myopic bunch who scream victimhood have basically they've propped up, and everybody is giving them just all this kudos, like people haven't heard this stuff before, and it amazes me how many people are just buying this bunk, this nonsense that is being spewed, this fake nonsense. It's really an expert in nothingness. It's almost like they come out. It's almost like they just come out of their own thin air, like how bad white people are. And if you can go on YouTube, Beverly D'Angelo, and look up white fragility. She does that. She has a little lecture that is about the most self-indulgent, grandiose piece of garbage. Now, there are a few of them with the comments disabled, and there are ones with the comments that are able to be put on, but a lot of them have the comments disabled. And they call it white fragility, yet the comments are disabled. So who can't basically speak your mind. Yeah, that's a lady in general. That's a lady I mentioned. You wanna play her real? Can't hear.
Belief is that they're inherently undeserving. I believe in the white mind, Black people are the ultimate racial other, right? And that there are these bookends. And again, your perceived proximity to each end of that impacts how you're going to experience your racialization. We can literally think about it as state-sanctioned, organized crime, but at least discrimination against African Americans from the beginning. And it starts with kidnapping and 300 years of enslavement, torture, rape, and brutality.
Wow.
And it carries on. And about a quarter of the way in, you see bans on testifying against whites, which made it technically legal to murder Black people in this country. And you are now in my lifetime. And I'm going to say it again, because again, a lot of white people seem to think it ended a long time ago. We're in my lifetime about a quarter of the way through that slide. And then we see about 2/3 of the way through employment discrimination, and we are in 2018 with copious empirical evidence. Right? So let's pick it up there. Employment discrimination, educational discrimination, biased laws and policing practices, white flight, subprime mortgages, mass incarceration, the school to prison pipeline, disproportionate special ed referrals and punishments, testing, tracking, school funding, biased media representation, historical omissions, and so much more. It is a system, not an event. It's the system we're in, and none of us could be, and none of us were exempt from its forces. If we want to be unique and special individuals, then we need to figure out how whatever we see is special and different about us set us up into that system, because it did. The question is not if, it's how. I'm going to repeat it. It's a system, not an event. And how do we cope with the moral trauma of what I just read to you? Resmaa Menakem has a beautiful book, My Grandmother's Hands, where he talks about racial trauma. There's a trauma, I believe, to white people of racism, but I don't think it's a moral trauma. Right? And it's a piece of white fragility, not being able to face our complicity in this system. Well, historically, we projected our sins onto the Black body, right? Lazy, shiftless, criminal. We projected our sins onto the Black body. Today, in addition to doing that, we obscure the system of racism that we uphold, and we exempt ourselves from its forces. Right? And we do this in a way that appears to be progressive, right? That race doesn't matter to us.
Yeah. So are we gonna play another one of her nonsense thing? And this is an expert in nothingness, Joe. This is a person who doesn't debate, by the way.
Oh, and by the way, this mentality runs rampant in a lot of the social services fields. Many fields that I've been involved with runs rampant at a disturbing level.
Yeah. And Joe, I don't think you can get a job within the social services community
If you
and
take
not,
these points.
if you question this in any way, you will not get a job. And I'm not even saying this is true or this is a lie.
No.
I'm asking, where's the counterpoint? Are counterpoints even allowed? If what you say is true, does it stand up? I mean, is it able to are we able to see if this stuff stands up to its bootstraps?
The most highly sought after in the field of therapy and psychotherapy, in at least here in California, the largest group of hirees were bilingual speakers, mostly speakers of the Latin, Mexican, were able to speak Spanish and communicate effectively with Mexicans. And it was I saw many therapists get grants after my graduation from my master's degree program. 3 Spanish speaking therapists got grants. I got none. So that was a slap in the face. I knew right then and there that I probably was going to be in the wrong field. And I made progress despite that and moved on beyond kind of that first couple years. And I'll tell you, it caught up with me eventually. I mean, it got in the years since then. That was early, the late 2000s. And then it just got so much worse. Within 5 years, there were points of views that I had, I could not discuss. And if I had clients who I agreed with on some of those points, I still couldn't talk to them about that. Or, and it was just, it got very limiting. I mean, the censorship, the amount of control that you are under when you're under state licensure in California, made me walk away from it. Because and one of those major aspects was I don't know if this white fragility is it, but certainly that was something like this kind of just your outlook on ethnicities and it was just so, oh my God, I can't even scratch the surface of it yet, but yeah, I walked away from that.
Well, it certainly looks, right now, it looks extremely authoritarian.
Mm-hmm.
And, the left knows it's in power. We're seeing censorship in ways in which we've never seen before. And, the internet was supposed to be, like the information superhighway, but really and truly with the left, the far left, controlling social media, the information age is really the censorship and cancel culture age. And right now, I mean, they're so metastasized into the system that I don't know what it's going to take. It's going to, because like when something's metastasized, like it's in the leg or it's in the arm, you're going to have to, get that operation and cut that out. And, there's going to be a lot of pain involved. And I don't know if people are, really ready to do that, because if these people take over, I think the American society is kind of finished. That's the way it looks to me. When you have a doctrine that is unquestioned, I mean, the scientific method and stuff, like you talk about, why is the social sciences, it seems like that's the only thing you can't talk about nowadays. But even more than that, you can't even talk about this pandemic openly right now. I mean, what's happening in this society where a free place of liberty and free thought, where people just can say this is like a religion, it's like gospel, it's like these kinds of this kind of unquestioning doctrines are for religion, and we're separate. America is separate from religion, or separate. We don't have a church, but this is like a church. This is like a faith. If you can't question it, and you're forbidden to even, like question the doctrine, and you can be, blacklisted or economically canceled. That's not really a free society. And that's the way it looks today, Joe. Joe, I don't know if Joe is left for his poker game.
I'm here. It's gotten worse, and it's not getting any better right now. But I have a feeling that we will see changes. But it all depends on funding, and that's the biggest issue, man. For me, I couldn't get grants, and I was starting to lose my ability to just bill at work because if some of the methodologies for dealing with people who had ideas like D'Angelo, I mean, I couldn't just turn away certain clients because we saw things differently, or they had views that I thought were controversial and didn't align with mine. You kind of have to suck it up and deal with it. And on top of what you have to cope with as a primary concern, you've got this kind of as an outlier and in the background. And, it just almost doubles the stress of what's getting done. I ran the other way, man. And it's not getting worse. And the money is getting harder to get if you don't align with this. This is where there is a massive cutoff of funding, because there are grant opportunities and loan opportunities that will go by the wayside. You will not get those if you're outside of the box on some of these ideas.
And that's one of the reasons, Joe, I mean, that's one of the reasons why, we started Transparency and Merit, because we want people to be able to discuss things openly and freely. And I was talking to a gentleman, and we had to kind of keep our voice down, because if other people hear what we're saying, there are groups out there that are very vindictive and very cruel. And it's almost like it's almost like there's a lynch mob in waiting.
I mean, are you afraid of speaking your mind and people around you hearing and going after you?
There is a part of me that, because
Uh-oh, hold on. We've got a call here. Let's see who. It looks like Ruthie. Good evening, Ruthie. You are on the show with Brian and Joe. We're doing a show here, Experts on Nothingness. We're talking about, we can catch you up, but how are you?
Fine.
Awesome.
Missing you guys.
Yes, we are. Brian, why don't you give Ruthie a synopsis of where we're going with this? Because Ruthie, you might I think you might have something to say about this.
Well, we have what we're talking about now is we're discussing people who, claim to be so-called experts, and they're really experts in nothingness, and really nothing that's productive. In fact, they're experts in things that are counterproductive, and they've been, since this whole George Floyd incident, they've been put on the forefront of the mainstream. And you literally cannot almost speak against him, because the establishment has given certain groups unquestioned authority. I don't know how long that's going to last, but it seems like the world has gone kind of topsy-turvy in this kind of thing, where we are given people just almost dictatorship style rule in certain departments and in certain areas.
I've seen it in the news. I almost don't watch the news anymore, sadly.
Yeah, it is sad, but I can't agree with you more. I tune out of the news.
I'm just totally tuned out. I noticed that recently I did see what happened with the Floyd situation. That it also broke my heart. That was totally wrong. I'm not in agreement with the police for doing that. But the people that have come out of the woodwork, I'm just so disappointed. People don't know what they're joining because they are TV viewers. Many of the millennials today grew up on television. Television was their babysitter. So they don't realize that they're seeing 10% of what's going on. If you recall, and don't worry about this, because this that's going on now, this will go. Ever. They do. We had the big Me Too movement. Remember that? How big that was?
Oh yeah.
Remember the Me Too movement?
Of course.
Yes.
Me Too is huge. Haven't you noticed that it's kind of gone away?
Yeah.
It comes up now and again, but it's certainly
Now and again, like your crazy uncle that you keep in the attic. Every now and again, people hear him rumbling his chains up there, and then he comes up. But otherwise, no. When Me Too first came out, they wanted someone really attractive. They didn't want the founder of Me Too. The founder of Me Too, I'm not saying she's unattractive, but she's a regular, ordinary woman. And they didn't want her. It's a black woman that's worked very hard. She's paid her dues, come up the hard way. A person that's really applied herself and her resources to the Me Too movement. But they didn't want that because that wasn't Hollywood enough. So they went and got Alyssa Milano, I think her name is. She used to be like the daughter of a guy that
Who's the boss?
somebody that played
Who's
that
the
played
boss?
Yeah. Who's the
housekeeper
boss?
or something like that. Remember that?
Yeah, she was.
Yeah.
She was.
But I want to say that Black Lives Matter was debunked.
They grabbed her. She had nothing to do with any of that. And by the way, remember what I always told you, that I never tell you something unless it's verifiable by somebody else. Didn't I say that always?
Yes.
Alyssa Milano waited over a week to speak against Harvey because she wanted to make sure that Harvey's wife, who provided her the free gowns for the red carpets, that it was okay with her. She went against her fashion provider's husband. How do you like that? If it's from the heart, you protest immediately. You don't have to wait. Well, let me wait a week until his wife comes back, because if she doesn't want me to speak against him, she might not give me dresses for the red carpet. Get it?
Yeah. But I mean, the thing of it is, Ruthie.
People forget real fast.
Yeah. Well, people forgot that BLM was, a lot of the stuff that they were standing up for has been absolutely discredited, a while ago. I mean, it started with Trayvon Martin, and then they went in full force after Michael Brown, which was completely it was completely discredited. His story was completely discredited. And now they're back in force again, and they have members on there that are completely Marxist. And it shows how much this country has changed, because 30, 40 years ago, a Marxist an organization that came out as Marxist would be completely. It would never. You could never get away with someone admitting that they were a Marxist. That they would be completely finished after that, and that's not the case anymore. So the country has changed, and not for the better in something like that.
It's going left. You can see that.
Yeah.
You can see that, can't you?
Oh, yes. And these
People
people
have a very short memory, and also a lot of the really vocal ones are people who didn't, they're in their 20s and 30s, so they don't know history. They don't bother to learn about history that happened even 50, 60 years ago.
Yeah.
They don't bother. Look at something as simple as who is on the board of Black Lives Matter.
Oh, I mean, aren't two of them admitted Marxist?
No, one of them is a domestic terrorist who is absolutely known for her violence and her criminal background. And who pardoned her? Clinton on his last day of office. Remember that?
No, that's not the woman who fled to Cuba, is it?
No, it was a friend of hers. I'm talking about Susan Rosenberg. She works for Black Lives Matter.
Now, is she known for her violence? Like, has she been violent with people? Yeah.
Oh gosh, yes. Oh yeah. Look at her history. Look her up in Wikipedia. The reason I don't give you the details because I don't want you to think that I'm trying to put someone down or trying to badmouth someone. I say go look at the facts. I'm not bad-mouthing anybody. I'm not telling you anything. You go look it up yourselves. Susan Rosenberg, what's her background?
Yeah, I remember her.
Susan Rosenberg, look at her background.
Black Liberation
What got her in
Army.
prison? How did she get in federal prison? She didn't just walk in there. She didn't steal from Target or Walmart or a department store. Look at her charges. Look at how she wound up in federal prison. See?
Yeah.
Look it up. Go look it up.
I'm looking at that now. I'm surprised. By the way, I'm surprised that because from my understanding, Wikipedia is scrubbing a lot of information right now. Like, and it's kind of said
they're cleaning up. What's that gal?
Kamala Harris.
The one that's running. She wants to be VP. She wants to be president.
Kamala Harris. Yeah.
Yeah, Kamala Harris's old boyfriend Willie Brown. They're trying to get rid of that.
Yeah. Good luck with that, because that's, you know what, even if Wikipedia scrubs that, she's got a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. And but who do you think now have you heard any rumblings on who Biden's going to pick for VP?
No, none. And I don't follow him. Poor thing. Poor thing. So sad.
I think he is. Unfortunately, I think he is. He's got the onset of dementia, and
they can cover that. Good TV coverage, good editing. They can cover that.
What about? I've heard that he won't debate. Like they're gonna find a way to not have him debate.
That's going to be adorable. That's like having the guy behind the curtain of
The Wizard of Oz. Yeah.
Road.
Yeah.
He won't debate, huh?
Well, that's what they're saying that. Well, Clinton.
Yep. I heard them. Yeah, I agree.
That he has to. That what was it? He said. One of the guys, I think Friedman, I forget. Let me see what his name is. Want to go into his name is Thomas Friedman. I believe it's Thomas L. Friedman, said that unless Trump releases a boatload of his tax returns, he won't debate him. I mean, he shouldn't debate him. And
Oh man.
and I used to have kind of respect for, and I used to think that he was a person of integrity, but now it's just he's just, in my opinion, he's just another activist journalist. In my opinion,
Yeah,
he,
but a lot of them were. You've got to again. We've got to stop dealing with these short memory behaviors. Hillary said, "If you give me money, I will make you the media elite," and they gave her money, and she lost. A lot of people actually left their spouses and moved their kids all the way to Washington, D.C. just to be near her, and she lost. So they went to get a refund. And she said, "What, are you crazy? You knew it was illegal to give me money in the first place." And she kept it all. So we've got a huge...
is there any proof of that?
Yeah, furious that they invested in her, couldn't get their money back, and she lost anyway. Talk about betting on the wrong horse.
Yeah, but I wonder how much of it is about power, and their egos are so huge.
It's all about power. It's all about power and the money that accompanies power.
Yeah.
Always been. That's not going to change. When the person gets in power, they then start changing the laws to suit themselves. That happens with every presidency. Happens all over the world.
Yeah. Yeah, I've just never, I've never witnessed activist journalists like this.
I have. I've been in other countries and have witnessed it. It's part of the norm, and now it's becoming part of the norm here. Look at what they did in Mexico. The current president, he put out a list of all the press that was on the take. Oh my goodness sake. He put out their names with their photos and the amounts they took in.
Well, yeah.
It's just that we just haven't done that in the United States or Canada, but that'll come.
Yeah. Well, what I see of America, and in the way I observe it, is these people have very big egos, and they think they know what's best for everyone, and they cannot take being criticized. And
did you see what Alexandria Ocasio released recently? It was a tweet about how we should make sure to keep America closed and the schools shut down so that it could ruin Trump's image. She could make it worse. She was recommending that everybody keep the schools closed.
Yeah, there's reason for that.
She was a nobody, and she won, what I would say, by accident. Nobody knew that she didn't live in the apartments that she had that very famous photographer do that whole photo shoot. And she kept referring to her partner as her partner. Her partner. And now partner, the word partner gave everybody the idea that she must be gay. So she got all the gay vote.
Yeah.
It was a guy. It wasn't a woman. She just knew enough to use the word partner.
Well, they're master manipulators, master controllers.
Yeah.
You know?
And look at how she talks, with waving her hands and like a pissed off school teacher.
Well,
she, in her head, she thinks she has authority.
Yeah. Well, to a degree, she does. I mean, she.
Not in my life. If you allow it, then she does. But you tune her out, she doesn't. You can't forget that people get voted into office and out of office just as easily. She came in by fooling the gay contingent that she was gay by calling her boyfriend a partner. She got a lot of votes from that neighborhood because they thought she lived there. That was her father's old apartment that they kept, and they didn't live in it at all. Nobody in the neighborhood knew her because she doesn't live there. She's a millennial. Many of them are very, very spoiled, very, very entitled. And she's got a grand command of vocabulary. And that makes people nervous because they think, oh, if she knows how to use that word, she must be smarter than me. She'll have her time.
Yeah.
She'll have her time.
I think a lot of the
something. She'll run for president someday. That's what I think.
Yeah, I'm beginning though to believe that the authoritarian left became in strength under Generation X, and then the millennials.
They don't know how to read, and they refuse to read history, and they don't want to learn about history. They're going to repeat it because they don't want to read. They don't want to. If it's not on TMZ, they don't want to see it. They don't want to hear it.
Well, they're also being miseducated by our education system. And now, these educators, these people who've been educated have been hired in a lot of these companies, and they've enacted their rules, because all of these computer companies, these software companies, Google and all the rest, they all have diversity departments, and these diversity departments have a lot of sway and a lot of control. And they are pushing, I believe, stuff that is rather rooted in Marxism, where it's basically, it's instead of a class hierarchy, it is a racial hierarchy of morality.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's very interesting that the people who are the least moral tend to stand on morality. And things, and a lot of things have to do with points of view.
Yeah.
I have points of view of my own, and sometimes I air them in discussions like this one, and people who have a different viewpoint don't appreciate that I have the audacity to state what I think, because they feel that since they're louder, that once they yell something, I should just succumb and go along with it. And when I die, that will happen. Until then, I will not succumb to strong arm tactics. I never have. And I won't. As the older I get, the stronger my convictions become.
Yeah, neither will I, and I really don't like what's become of our nation, and not only our nation, but the rest of the world.
When they speak, just tune them out. That's what I have found. I don't have to put up with them. It's terrible. I've learned so much more about Netflix and all sorts of other wonderful programs because I don't want to watch the news anymore.
Well, I don't even do Netflix.
I don't like to watch people fighting. If I hear my neighbors arguing or my best friends, say it's a married couple and they're in an argument, I'm not going to stay there. I had my close neighbors in an argument once, and I literally snuck out of my own place and went down the street and went shopping. Went to the grocery store because I don't want to listen to it. If I won't accept that in my own life, I'm certainly not going to accept it in anybody else's. And there are people that are raised, they've been taught and groomed to argue, and that's all they want to do.
Yeah, I mean, and there's no point.
Very unpleasant.
Yeah, I don't think, I really believe that there's no point in debating a leftist. Or even discussing certain things with a leftist, because they don't want to hear from you, and at best you'll have a vigorous disagreement, but at worst they'll try to hurt you.
It's like fighting with someone over religion. It's ethereal. It can't be proven. and they take it personally and get very, very offended when you won't accept their viewpoint. And sometimes an ethereal idea, it's really sweet and romantic, but it can't be, like they'll quote something literal out of some part of a book that is important to their religion, the Quran or the Bible or whatever. One has to interpret those pieces of literature as one wishes, but you can't ram it down someone else's throat.
No,
and
you can't.
these
And that's a great
leftists
point.
do that.
That's a great point to bring up, because that does. I've butted heads with more people in the last couple months over various side roads, related or not to the whole lockdown, and it's been nothing but division after division. It's been rampant. It's been at work. It's been at home. It's been at play, and it's just very frustrating. A very frustrating sign of the times. I wonder, Ruthie, what do you see as an outcome when we do finally get like basically the world economy back and going? Do you feel that there are positive efforts being made to change the world for the better, or do you think that we're going to just kind of fall right back into the cluster we had been stuck in and spiraling down in the last few years, in my view?
I think like always, things go through their procedures. The fire, it gets lit. Then you have red embers followed by ashes. Then it cools down and life continues. You go do something else. People have short memories, thank goodness. And this will pass. This is not going to be forever. So this is something I recommend to everyone. Do not create long-term solutions for a temporary thing. I'll give you an example. One of my good friends that I've known for many years says, "Oh, and I got a cat." But this friend travels a lot and has a lot of business and will have a lot of business in the next few years. This friend will be working for me and we'll be traveling from one country to the other, and now has a cat. You can't take your cat with you. And a pet is a mascot that you bring into your life, and now you worry about it. You have to invest in it. You've got to spend money at the vet. You start loving that animal, that pet, the way you would love a kid. Problem is, now it's time to travel. You got a business deal. Well, you get childcare for the kid. But what do you do with an animal? You have to put the animal in what they call a doggy daycare or whatever. You have to board them. What if you have a project that lasts 3 months? You're going to board your dog for 3 months? And that's what people are doing. They're so selfish that rather than give the dog a good life with someone else, they'd rather keep the dog and keep the ownership of the dog by ruining the dog's life, basically relegating the animal to a long-term pet boarding contract. And no one knows they've done that because they're not going to brag about it. Oh, by the way, I'm free. I'm coming and going from country to country. But I've got my animal stuck in a boarding situation for 3 months that I'm on the road. And the vet isn't going to do anything about it because they're making money on having that dog sitting in that cage. Those are just parts of life I'm trying to remind you guys of. These things go on every day. But COVID will end. COVID is not forever. So don't come up with long-term solutions or make long-term decisions simply because you're stuck in the house with someone that you're thinking, I'm married to that person. I can't believe it. In the same, and now you start looking at your spouse funny. Does he really have that little bit of hair? Is that a porn I see? Oh my God, when did his feet get so big? And you start thinking that way. I'm telling you all, stop this. Don't be so critical of your partner. and understand this COVID thing is temporary. Don't go getting a divorce because you can't stand the individual when you're stuck with him or her.
That's a great point. It really is.
And don't go throwing away the police department just because of a few outliers. And justice.
So cute. I was reading the paper. You just brought that up. It was so cute. I was glancing the headlines, and one of them said that several, I think 3 or 4 of them, of the Minneapolis council that were voting to defund the police in Minneapolis actually paid $3,000 to $4,000 per day for each of them. Well, actually, they don't pay it. The Minneapolis taxpayers are paying it. So the very people who want to defund the cops make sure that they have $3,000 to $4,000 a day to protect their butts.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
And again, I don't pull this stuff out of my ear. Go look it up.
No, I know. Yeah, I read about. You know what?
I don't say anything unless it's verifiable.
Yeah. I heard New York has become a hellhole. New York City. Because
In
of
what
the,
way?
Well, New York City basically is being run by mobocracy. You know, the crime is rampant, and looting and rioting is out of control. The city of Seattle, much of that has also become a hellhole, a leftist hellhole. And
that chop place in Seattle, they corrected that. They took it down.
after how long? They should never.
Several weeks, right? Didn't they take over for several weeks?
Couple weeks. Yeah, maybe 3.
Yeah.
It shouldn't have been up for more than a day. What are you doing? What are you doing? I mean, we toppled down, you know, regimes, and we're allowing this kind of garbage. This has
to happen from time to time. People have to let out and march and make their political point known, and this happens. This happens every so often. It really does.
Ruthie, you know what? You can march, but if you disturb or impose on anybody else, that should end. And by the way, I want to mention that they're allowed to march, but if you do a defend the police or a Blue Lives Matter, you can the risk of violence against you is great.
Yeah.
So only one group is allowed to protest. And first of all, your protest should be lawful and it should be orderly. If you disturb any person's home or you disrupt traffic, that should be it. Done. The protest is over, and if you block traffic, you should go to jail.
Well,
unfortunately, I don't know why.
The left is having a good time with the United States government, and now that they have some power, it's going to take further power to take them down, to move them out of the way. But right now, they really believe they have the authority. And usually, you can't take situations down like that unless you use equal or greater power. And it'll come to that. And then we'll forget all about it. It'll pass.
I think what needs to happen is you need to build more jails, and just, you know, slowly but surely, you can't arrest them all, but you can arrest some of them and mark them. And then after a while, you start arresting, start putting more in jail. And jail time, a time in jail is a great deterrent, because once you spend time in jail, you don't want to go back. And that's what you're going to have to do if you want to stop and curb this kind of belligerent, arrogant, and narcissistic behavior. You have to, there has to be punishment. If there's no punishment for people breaking the law, then they're going to continue with this kind of behavior. and they've been allowed to bully and thug people, and then the establishment is actually canceling and economically blacklisting those who stand up against them. And it's something that, in my opinion, I don't know why that there's not someone big enough within the establishment to stand up against this, to say, wait a minute.
There is. They'll come out. Give them a little time. They'll come out.
Yeah, I've never. Although I'll tell you something, Ruthie, I've never seen something so discredited be given the establishment's backing in my lifetime. Anyway, I mean, I know the governments lie, and but Black Lives Matter was like, it was completely, they were completely clowned on social media, and the media types that supported them were also clowned. I mean, as short as 3 years ago, and now they're back in force.
Clowned or crowned?
Clowned. They were clowned. They were completely shown as absolutely absurd.
Ridiculed.
Yeah, they were absolutely ridiculed. Clowned.
They were exposed. Yes.
Yeah.
Give it time. Give it time.
Yeah, I mean, they're already. I think they're already imploding, Ruthie.
Yes. Yes.
And because you know what, these individuals with power, they don't know how to, they feel so self-righteous that they're going to continue to do things that end up, right now the public seems to have their back, but after a while, I just don't think
they'll get tired. You'll see.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that I don't think that I don't think they know how to handle victory, because the truth is, all they want is it seems like a lot of them, they just want attention. They're attention whores. And sooner or later, people will see right through that. Hey, with that being said, is there anything to say before I end this show? Because I have to get myself to bed, unless you want to keep going, Joe.
No, I think we're good. But Ruthie, you have any final thoughts?
Of course, and they're all selfish. May I?
Yeah, and let's plan for another show ahead of time next time. But go ahead.
Yeah. UnityGlobalGroup.net.
Very good.
We now used cryptocurrency for food cultivation and distribution. We've used cryptocurrency for an auto initiative for unbanked individuals. And we've gotten the blessing and cooperation of General Motors.
Nice.
And all sorts of wonderful people. Chrysler.
Say it again. What's it?
Unity Global Group.
UnityGlobal.net.
And that's where you see all our projects. We have anti-COVID project. We're using cryptocurrency for that. We're using cryptocurrency to feed millions of people. Food cultivation, and a wonderful thing called Auto Initiative. It's an auto initiative for people who are unbanked. You take for granted that you have a birth certificate and a driver's license and a passport to come and go as you wish. There are some people who have none of those. And still today, there are people born in their homes who don't get registered anywhere, not in town hall, not in the church. The Catholic Church used to do a lot of registering through their baptism, but that doesn't happen everywhere. It doesn't.
Right
it
on.
does not.
All right, Brian, you want to wrap this up?
All right, yeah. So like and subscribe our channel of Transparency and Merit. We will be improving our website. We want to be a place of open and honest debate. And I thank you.
Where is your website? Where is the website? Give me the address. Let's give out the address.
Transparencyandmerit.com. But yeah, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, transparencyandmerit.com, because as YouTube and all the rest of the social media platforms restrict speech, we want to be a place of free speech, free thought, and freedom of expression. That is Joe and I's and our main goal with this website and with the organization of Transparency and Merit. All right, I think
I'm all for that.
Yeah, absolutely. We need it. We need it. We, you know, in the internet age, we need to be the information age. And we want to just put our dent. We are the information age, and we need to continue to be the information age. And you can't have that when you have censorship.